right, everybody, welcome on in to KBO Chats Live. I'm Sam Pascal alongside Eric Holzerman, and we are breaking down the Korean series last live show. It's been a crazy season, and we finally coming down to the Deucin Bears and the NC Dinos. The matchup we all thought it would be back in May didn't take quite the route we thought it would be, but we got here, got the Dinos repping it. Eric, how you feeling right now? A little sad it's the last show, but we do get to see who's going to be crowned champion after this series.
Yeah, definitely a bittersweet moment. It's been a fun year following KBO all year, falling in love with the league along with so many other people. Doing this show multiple times a week has provided some nice rhythm to some rather interesting few months here. We'll be sad to lose it, but excited for the upcoming series for sure.
Yeah, it should be a very exciting in terms of KBO and Major League Baseball. We should expect a couple players at least to come back overseas. So always have this season with us. But before we get too sentimental with that, of course, have to dive in to the series. The Deucin Bears have made their way through the crazy postseason. They are facing the Dinos, who haven't played in a while. Eric, tell me, how have the Bears gotten here? What have they faced, and where have they been, and how'd they get here?
Yeah, so we can look back to the final day of the regular season, the final day for almost every team. The Bears were sitting in fifth, which would have sent them to the wild card game, giving them a one-game disadvantage in that series as well, and giving them a very tough path to make it here. They won on the final day of the season, got a little bit of help elsewhere, jumped all the way up to third, which meant they got to skip the wild card round and face the Twins in the next series. They won that 2-0 against the team who they share a stadium with. Dominant performance from Chris Flexen, which is going to be a theme in game one, 11 strikeouts and 6 scoreless innings. And then the offense got it done in game two with a shaky start from Raul Alcantara, who we'll be talking about soon. He failed to complete 5 innings, allowed 4 runs, but a 7-run fourth inning from the Bears lineup got the job done. Sent them to a 5-game series with the Wiz. And again, it was Chris Flexen dominant in game one, 11 more strikeouts in over 7 innings. Basically a bullpen game in game two that they also won. Alcantara came back for game 3 and was strong through 7 innings, 7 scoreless innings before giving up 3 runs, and they actually lost that one. But they got the job done in game 4, a 2-0 win. Which saw the starter Hee-Kwan Yu leave after just 3 batters. The only out he got was a play at the plate on a single. But it turned into effectively a bullpen game, and they got the job done with no runs allowed, including 3 innings to save it from Chris Flexen. Yet again, needed just 30 pitches. That was just, 4 days ago, which means Flexen isn't going to go game 1 this time. He'll presumably be ready for game 2. But really a Madison Bumgarner-like postseason for him so far, just untouchable. And again, wherever he's used, getting the 2 wins in his 2 starts and then 3 shutout innings to send them to their 6th straight Korean series. So this is a place the Bears have been quite a lot recently. They made it again 5 in a row, winning 3 of them. So we've got a dynasty on the one side versus a Dinos team that has never won the trophy.
Yeah, we'll have to see. They're looking for that first title. Staying with the Bears, the defending champs, they are sending out Raul Alcantara, who was great this season for them. October Player of the Month. Looked, phenomenal. A 7-game winning streak to end the regular season. But now the Bears are just 1-1 in his 2 postseason starts. 7 earned runs in 12 innings is not what we were expecting. He did win. They did win the last start. He went 7 scoreless innings before allowing 3 earned runs in the 8th inning. What are we expecting from Alcantara in game 1 in a start that we probably should have seen Flexen in if he wasn't making that relief appearance?
Yeah, Alcantara's neck is probably the biggest question for tonight. It was neck stiffness was cited as the reason for his poor outing against the Twins. Again, failed to complete 5 innings, gave up 4 runs. And he was much better in his most recent start. Again, he went 7 scoreless innings before eventually giving up 3 in the 8th. Only 5 strikeouts is a little bit below what we normally expect from him. But still, I feel like if you start your game with 7 scoreless innings, we could probably say you're basically healthy. And the fact that they're throwing him out here in game 1 seems to indicate to me that they think he's the normal Raul Alcantara. And if he really is the normal Raul Alcantara, that's fantastic news for the Bears. Couldn't really be better, given that he was the Choi Dong-Won Award winner. That's the KBO equivalent of the Cy Young. 2.53 ERA on the season, 1.03 WHIP. The voters said he's the best pitcher in the KBO. It's hard to argue with that. You might say Chris Flexen down the stretch has looked slightly better, but Alcantara was fantastic down the stretch too. He had an ERA of 0.79 and a WHIP of 0.68 in his last 5 starts. So again, only his teammate Flexen really performed better than that down the stretch, and nobody performed better over the course of the entire season. So if that really is who he is tomorrow morning, then this is excellent news for the Bears.
Yeah, hoping Alcantara is in that MVP level form he showed he can be and was in for most of this regular season. Now, turning our attention to the offense that will be backing him up, they haven't put up crazy numbers like we really expected them to, haven't really put up a ton of runs since game 2 of the semi-playoff a few days ago. 4 or fewer runs in 5 of their 6 playoff games. Is that concerning to you, Eric? You know, especially when we saw the Bears leading the entire season with that offense and relying heavily on that unit.
It's definitely somewhat concerning. I mean, you expect lower scoring in the playoffs since you're only facing the good teams and only facing the good pitchers. But they've averaged just 4 runs per game in their 6 playoff contests, and 9 of those came in one game. Of course, their pitching has been great. They've only given up 2.5 runs per game. That's why they won all but one of those 6 games. So they've hit enough, and they have just great depth in their lineup. So many guys who can at least do a decent job that you figure somebody's going to be on at some time in every game, which is good because some of their key hitters have not been particularly on lately. Jose Fernandez specifically, you know, their lone foreign hitter came within 2 hits of setting the single season hit record, or of tying the single season hit record in the KBO. I think he finished with 199 and only one person's ever cleared 200. But he was not great down the stretch. Just hit 259, 335, 380 in his last 40 games. He hasn't been great in the playoffs either, just 4 hits in 6 games. I did have a homer that won the first postseason game. But on the whole, it's been pretty unimpressive. And again, they have enough talented hitters that somebody's going to be able to pick up the slack, just enough to get them the win. That's been their pattern in the game so far this postseason. But if they don't get him back to form, that's definitely makes them not the same lineup we're used to seeing. It was the second best lineup over the course of the season, though it was a full half run behind the Dinos, who led the league. Have to take into account the fact that the Bears play in the most pitcher-friendly park in the league. So the true talent gap between those is a bit smaller. But it's a deep lineup, but even a deep lineup doesn't want to see its top hitter underperforming in a key time.
For sure. 2 for 17 against KT in those 4 games. Not what you expect from your power DH foreign import. Even more concerning, the Bears put up just 2.75 runs in those games against the Wiz, so they're not exactly on fire offensively. Turning our attention to the pitcher now that they'll be facing, tough task. Drew Rozinski got the Dinos hat here, 19 wins this season. Opening day starter, looked great. Outside a 5-game stretch, end of July, beginning of August, where he did have an ERA over 7, he's been productive and healthy all season long. He had a stretch, even in that one stretch where I was talking about with the ERA over 7, he did produce 2 starts of 1-run ball. So even when he's bad, he's not that bad. So I think we're going to see the good form of Rozinski. But what are your thoughts on the Dinos ace?
Yeah, he gets nearly 3 weeks of rest here, given that the Dinos get to bye straight to the Korean Series by winning the regular season. And as we know from almost 2 decades of recent history in KBO, 16 of the last 18 regular season winners go on to win the Korean Series. The 2 that did come in the last, I believe, 4, maybe 5 years. So maybe that's changing. But that rest has proven beneficial to most of the recent teams, nearly every recent team in the last 2 decades. We'll see if that helps Rozinski. He didn't end the year in amazing form. Overall, his 3.05 ERA was actually an exact match for his season prior, and an excellent number, backed up by a 21.7% strikeout rate and a 7.4% walk rate, both quite strong numbers. But he was really, on the whole, much better early than late. His first 14 starts, he had an ERA of 1.99, but in his last 16, it was a 4.08. And again, a lot of it was in that stretch you were talking about. That was a while ago now. And most of his recent starts were quite good, though he does have a few shaky ones in there. But he's not necessarily entering in the best form, at least if you look back again over nearly half the season. A 4.08 ERA is not an ace. But you could certainly make a case that it doesn't really matter a ton what form he was in at the end because, again, he's had nearly 3 weeks to rest. So on the whole, an excellent pitcher. I would have preferred those two halves were reversed, would have been a little bit more optimistic about him in that case. But I don't think the Dinos should worry too much about having him on the mound by any means.
Yeah, got to be confident when he's starting. And, that's the crazy thing about the playoff format where it doesn't really matter the momentum that you had in the regular season when you're the 1 seed because it's been such a long time for you actually playing and impacting the offense. Because the Bears, while they haven't been rolling, they have been at least seeing competitive pitching in live games. Dinos haven't had any of that. In terms of their offense, how do you see that impacting their top guys? You got Yuji Yang in there, Sung Bung Na, and Aaron Altair down at 8 with someone we joked about early in the season, a 4 and bat way down there. Seems to be comfortable, seems to be working, but the long period of rest, don't know what we're going to get from them.
Yeah, definitely weird lineup construction all season long. Again, can't really talk because I'm not a manager. I'm just a writer, and Dino's manager clearly knows what he's doing. He got him this far, but when you have Aaron Altair going 8 instead of say 2, where Hee-Dong Kwon is, KBO DFS actually just came back today. There's a showdown slate on DraftKings for the start of the Korean series, and Kwon, who hits second, I believe is going to be the cheapest starting regular or starting hitter on either team. He's a fine player, but the fact that he's hitting 2 and Altair's 8 is weird, but it also just signifies the depth that this Dinos team has. Again, the lineup is their strength. They have plenty of good pitchers, but on the whole, their pitching staff was pretty ordinary for a playoff team. But the lineup was fantastic. Again, they led the league by half a run per game. And if you look at these two teams together, the top 5 hitters on these two teams in OPS, the Dinos have 4 of them. It's just Jose Fernandez for the Bears, and it's Yuji Yang, Sung Bum Na, Aaron Altair, and Minwoo Park are all in the top 5 collectively. So more depth among the elite hitters, and as much, if not more depth, just in terms of at least decent hitters. Really 1 through 9, there's no weak spots in this lineup. You might even say Myung-Ki Lee and Hee-Dong Kwon, the 1 and 2 hitters, are the 2 weakest on the team. Oddly enough, again, it got them here, so can't complain too much. But just so much depth, no easy outs on this team at all. Yuji Yang, fantastic, quite possibly the best. I think pretty clearly the best hitter in this series. He was 3rd in the league in OPS. He had an OPS over 1,000 for the 3rd straight season, and he's a catcher and a good defensive one at that. I believe the Dinos had the fewest bases stolen against them this season. So he does everything. He should know the Bears well, too. He was with the Bears for their 2 titles, 2 of their 3 titles in this recent run. This is only his 2nd year with the Dinos, so he knows the team quite well. Fantastic at the plate and behind it. Sung Bum Na hits right after him, likely coming to MLB this season. Yang and Na were 3rd and 4th in the entire league in OPS. It's as good a 1-2 punch as you're going to get anywhere else. And again, the drop-off after them isn't huge. There's no weak outs in this lineup at all. So even for a pitcher as good as Alcantara and Chris Flexen coming up later, this is the toughest test there is in the KBO.
Indeed, but looking at the total, 7.5, the FanDuel Sportsbook definitely thinks that these lineups might have some trouble against Alcantara and Rozinski, these 2 aces or co-ace with Alcantara. What do you think? 7.5? I think it's going to go over because of that depth. But do you think maybe we see that pattern of low-scoring Bears games and the Dinos still a little slower getting started after the break, that we could hit that under?
Right, 7.5 is super low, It only takes a 5-3 score to go over, but 5 of the Bears' 6 playoff games so far have gone under, have been at 7 runs or less. I think when you've got Alcantara and Rozinski, again, if the average playoff game is being under 7.5, I think when these pitchers are throwing, I think I have to go under. Again, there's like really no wiggle room there, and there are at least minor questions about both starters. If you're worried about Alcantara's neck, even though he did, again, look significantly better his last time out, he could, if he gives up 4, it's a pretty good chance they hit the over. If you're worried about Rozinski's second half, where, again, he had a 4.08 ERA in his last 16 starts, not ace material. If he gives up 3 or 4, it's pretty easy to hit that over. I think neither of those are going to happen, but I would not look down on anybody taking the over here. Again, just it's such a low number. There's so many talented hitters. You just need one bad inning from either of those pitchers to hit it. So under for me, but not with a ton of confidence.
All right, not feeling great about that total. Could go either way. In terms of the money line here, I saw this line a little different earlier, but we do have the Dinos as the dogs, plus 100 on them. Who's going to come out with the Game 1 victory, Eric?
I do think it's correct to make the Dinos the underdog. I do think it's quite tight. The Dinos, again, they have a slightly better lineup, but Raul Alcantara, best pitcher in the league, that's enough for me. Given that Rozinski was not quite an ace for the second half, I'm going to slightly side with Alcantara and just cross my fingers that his neck is totally fine. I think the Bears think it's fine, given that they're starting him Game 1. So it's a slight Bears lean for me here.
All right. Can we get a final score prediction? What is the Game 1 final score that you think is going to happen?
We'll go 4-2. Not much more room. 4-2 seems fine to me.
All right. Counting on that Bears offense. That's actually pretty much on par, but counting on them to not be up in Game 1.
4 to 2.5 has been the average score for the Bears in the playoffs so far, and I couldn't pick 2.5, so we'll go 2 rather than 3.
Keep it right there on the average as close as possible. I like it. And very briefly wrapping up the show, taking a look at the beautiful Korean Series trophy here, courtesy of my KBL on Twitter. One of these lucky teams will be taking home this trophy. Very cool. Check them out on Twitter. And we got to get our series prediction here. Take a look at the series schedule. Because every single pick in the before playoff preview, before it happened back on October 31st, you predicted every series that happened. And they have all come true to the exact number of games. Going through each one of them, wild card, you had Twins winning the 1. So that's what happened. You had Bears against the Twins in 2. Exactly what happened. Alcantara and Flexen were pretty solid. Bears in 4, what we just saw. Mel Rojas Jr., I'll admit, he didn't show up. That whiz offense, I thought it'd be a slugfest, did not happen. And now, what are we going with? Dinos and Bears. You picked Dinos in 7. Are we going to stay with that? Or do you want a little wiggle room to change that now after seeing what the Bears did against the Wiz and the Twins?
Right, so clearly I should trust October version of myself, given that he was right on everything so far. But I definitely have my doubts. I was not super confident in that Dinos pick when I made it. I think I said there, if the series were taking place on equal footing, I would slightly lean Bears, but the fact that the number 1 seed has won so often lately was enough to overcome that slight edge I thought they had. So here are some of the things that are making me question that Dinos pick. Again, if I'm picking the Bears slightly in this one, if I'm having faith in Alcantara, that means I'm thinking that the Dinos would have to win 4 of the next 6. And I think the big question, I think what's going to determine this playoffs is, do the Bears just clean up behind Flexen and Alcantara? That's what they did during the season. In the regular season, they won 72.5% of games in which one of those 2 started. And they had a 47.8% winning percentage, so slightly worse than 500 when those 2 aren't starting. They're going to get to start 4 games here. If you give them 3 wins out of those 4, it means the Dinos have to sweep the other 3 games. So it's probably games 1, 2, 5, and 6. Again, that says the Dinos are going to win 1 out of 4 against those, which is the rate that other teams have been beating those 2 guys over the course of the season. So the Dinos' path is, again, to clean up in the other games where they don't necessarily have the best pitchers going either, or it's to split games against Alcantara and Flexen and then just go 2-1 in the others. Both of those seem pretty difficult to me. The other question is which version of Chang Mo-Koo is going to show up. He was the best pitcher in the league by far early in the year. He had a 1.55 ERA and an 0.82 whip in 13 starts. But then he went down with forearm issues, came back for 2 brief appearances, allowed 3 runs in 6 1/3 innings, only 3 strikeouts. He's had a few more weeks to rest here. But the fact that he's not going game 1 maybe is a sign that they don't think he's the guy he was early in the year. Not that Rozinski is a bad choice to start a game 1 by any means, but possible cause for concern there. I haven't seen anything saying he's injured, but so question marks there. And I think I'm going to have to renege on my previous pick, and I'm going to flip over to Bears in 7. I just think Flexen and Alcantara are too good. I don't think I can pick the Bears to win tonight and not pick them to win the series. I think, so again, the Dinos would have to probably take a game or 2 in the other 3 against Flexen and Alcantara. That seems really hard to me. So I think given that I'm going Bears for game 1, I think I'm kind of locked into picking them in 7.
Wow, going against the oracle, if you will, of October, Eric Halterman. But that's what we're going with. I, of course, got to go with the Dinos. In 7, I think they could do it in 6. I want to say that Chang Mo-Koo could be, good to go, for this first championship, that they'll just give it all, and he's had plenty of time to rest. So if there's any time to let him kind of go out there and kind of give it his all, it'd be now. Got the hat, of course, rooting for the Dinos, as I was a little cardboard cutout way back in June at the stadium. So there's a cardboard Sam somewhere in Korea right now rooting for the Dinos. So I'm going to go with the Dinos, but we'll see what happens here. Going game 1 with the Bears and the under 7.5 and a predicted final score of 4-2. And that's all we got. And some fans are, of course, you hate to see it happen. Go and read the article, but you had to after you see what the Bears did.
Yeah, and again, if Alcantara looks beatable today, and if he is beaten today, I do think the Dinos are going to take it. Obviously, game 1 is never a must-win, but given how good those guys have been, the Dinos have to beat them sometime, and if they look unbeatable, it's trouble, even for the best offense in the league. So I think game 1 is going to tell us quite a lot.
All right, very exciting. Coming up at 4:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, or late tonight if you want to stay up, however you want to calculate that. Still don't know. Full season, still don't know the time zones. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We got the picks here. Wanted to briefly go over what we have planned. If you want some more from our personalities and RotoWire content, for me, check out Fantasy Bites anywhere you get podcasts. Apple Podcasts is the most popular destination for all things fantasy football and other fantasy news as the NBA season begins. Focus really on the short form content. If you saw the KBO show on YouTube back in August was one of our last episodes. Very similar to that, but football themed in the audio format. And check me out on Twitter at Sports by Pasco. Got some exciting things planned for that as well. Eric, you want to tell the fans about what you got planned on your Twitter and profile?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. The handle's right there on the screen at Eric with K _Halterman. Trying to be more interesting on there, though mostly I just tweet out my articles, which you can also find at rotowire.com. You can click on me and see all my articles there. It'll be slower for me over the offseason since I am primarily a baseball guy, both KBO and MLB, and there's less of that going on right now. But things will, I'm sure, pick up as the season gets closer next year. I still don't know, what the status of KBO and broader American culture is going to be in 2021. Obviously, we would love to be a part of it if it is still occupying this role, and I hope that it does. I've really fallen in love with the league this year. I think it's been a great time to follow. No promises at the moment, but if we're back here in April, whenever it is, late March, I'd be quite happy about it. So we'll see how things go.
Me too. It's been a great season, a crazy ride, and we finally made it. There were times where we didn't know what would happen, but we're here. Korean Series Game 1. Rozinski's healthy, going against Alcantara. Should be a great matchup. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Been a lot of fun interacting with you guys on Twitter. We got a little special something planned for Wednesday, a little wallpaper Wednesday to wrap up the season. But otherwise, it's been great. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Check out rotowire.com/freekbo. That link still does work to check out RotoWire for the current lineups and for all the other fantasy sports needs and stats. It's all right there. Again, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming, and thanks for coming all season, everybody.